Today, we're going to crack open a 2,500-year-old user's manual for the human mind. And it turns out, by going back to the original language, we can unlock some incredibly modern, powerful techniques for dealing with those thoughts that just won't leave us alone.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're trying to work or maybe just relax, and then bam, there it is. That nagging, anxious thought, that embarrassing memory, that little voice of self-doubt. It's like a pop-up ad in your own brain, and no matter how many times you try to click the X, it just keeps coming back.
Well, these mental pop-ups are nothing new. In fact, they were described with shocking accuracy thousands of years ago. They were called unskillful thoughts, and they were seen as being rooted in three, let's say, core drivers: greed, hatred, and delusion. These are the things that basically fuel those distracting and destructive loops in our heads.
But here's the good news. There's a guide for this. About 2.5 millennia ago, a text was recorded called the Vitakkasaṇṭhānasutta. And it's not some dense philosophical text. It's more like a practical, step-by-step instruction manual for how to deal with these exact thoughts. The text lays out this really clear 5-step strategy. You can almost think of it like a troubleshooting flowchart for your own mind. You know, if method 1 doesn't work, you just move on to the next one. Simple as that. So, here are the steps. First, try to replace a bad thought with a good one. You know, swap a weed for a flower. If that doesn't work, okay. Then you examine the downside, the danger of that thought. Still stuck? Well, the text says to just ignore it. If it still persists, you try to calm the whole process that creates the thought. And finally, as a last resort, you basically use pure mental force to crush it. Seems pretty straightforward, right?
And honestly, for a long, long time, that's how these instructions have been understood. Just simple, practical advice. But what if some of the most powerful instructions got a little bit lost in translation? What if the original words held a much more active and way more profound meaning?
Okay, let's zoom in on step 3. Ignore the thought. I mean, it sounds so passive. Just look away. Don't give it your attention. We've all tried that, and let's be real, how well does that usually work? The more you try not to think of a purple cow, the only thing you can see is a field of purple cows.
So what gives? Was this ancient advice just kind of bad? Or are we missing something really important? What if that word we translate as ignore actually points to a much more powerful and strategic action? To figure this out, we have to use this ancient linguistic tool called niriti. Now, this is the art of digging deep into a word's roots, its etymology, to uncover the original intent, the real power behind the word, not just its simple definition. It's kind of like going from reading the user manual to actually reading the source code itself. And when we apply this to the text, wow, the instructions totally transform. They stop being just simple advice, and they become like actual commands for reprogramming your own mind. So let's run this mental debugger and see what happens.
Okay, let's look at step 3 again. The original Pali phrase is asati amanasikaro. Now, it's often translated as ignore or non-attention. But when we trace its roots, we find a way more active meaning. It's about consciously withdrawing the resources that are keeping that thought alive. This isn't just ignoring, this is defunding. It's literally unplugging it from its power source.
Think about it like this. A negative thought is like an appliance, and it runs on the electricity of your attention. Just looking away doesn't turn it off, right? Defunding it means you actively walk over to the wall and you pull the plug. You make a conscious decision. I'm not giving you any more of my mental energy. The thought doesn't just vanish. It powers down because you've cut off its fuel.
Now let's try this on step 4. The common translation is calm the thought's formation. The Pali is Vitakkasaṇṭhānasutta. But again, when we dig into the roots, it's not about soothing a thought that's already there. It's about going to the assembly line. It's about looking at all the individual parts, the triggers, the assumptions, the little stories that build the thought, and stopping the whole process before it even finishes.
So here's the mind-blowing part. It's not about calming the symptom. This is about becoming a programmer for your own mind. You actually go into the code and you ask, okay, what beliefs, what triggers are building this thought? And then you rewrite that code. You don't just calm the pop-up ad, you uninstall the entire program that's generating it in the first place. So when you start to see these instructions not as simple advice, but as active programming commands, the whole goal shifts. It's not just about damage control anymore. It's about achieving genuine mastery over your own mind.
And this gets us to the ultimate aim of the whole practice. The text says that by doing this, you become a master of the paths of thought.
You're no longer just the passive passenger getting dragged around. You become the architect of your own mind. You get to decide which thoughts get your attention and which ones you just let go. I mean, imagine that. Thinking what you actually want to think. That's real freedom.
And the result of gaining this kind of mastery is, well, it's profound. As the text concludes, by gaining this control, you effectively dismantle the very machinery that creates suffering. You cut off the cravings. You break the chains that bind you to those painful, unskillful mental patterns.
So this 2,500-year-old manual isn't really about just ignoring bad thoughts. It's a guide to becoming the conscious programmer of your inner world. So I guess the only question left is, what's the first line of code you're going to rewrite? Which one of those recurring mental pop-ups are you finally ready to uninstall?